My daughter texted, "You're no longer invited to dinner. My husband doesn't want to see a freeloader." I called my lawyer right after to change my will. 3 days later, I had 99 missed calls on my phone. "I'm glad you're here. Stay with me until the end. And tell me, what city are you watching my story from? I want to know just how far it's traveled." I stood in front of the mirror, wearing the indigo blue dress Camille once told me made me look like the kind of woman who never forgets a birthday. I remember that moment clear as daylight, like the smell of her shampoo when she leaned over my shoulder to adjust the neckline and smiled. "Keep this one forever, Mom. It's you." So here I was, still keeping it. I straightened my shoulders and clipped on the pearl earrings she gave me for my 60th. She picked them out herself from that little shop downtown, wrapped them in tissue paper and tucked them into a pink box with a ribbon too tight to undo without scissors. I still have the box. It's in my dresser drawer, under the old letters. I glanced at the clock. 6:30. Dinner was at 7:30. I'd be early if I left soon. Just enough time to help set the table, maybe chop some parsley if Eli hadn't already. I grabbed the bottle of red I'd been saving since last Christmas. Italian, deep-bodied, smooth. Jean used to say good wine should be saved for moments when you want people to feel remembered. I slipped it into a paper bag, texted Camille, "I'll come a bit early to help you set the table." Then I waited. Nothing came back. I wandered into the living room. The photos on the shelf had a habit of watching me. There was me and Jean, on our 50th. He had that crooked grin, tie half loose, like always. Camille, on graduation day, cap tilted, eyes bright with plans. The kids when they were still small enough to crawl into my lap without asking. Delilah, all curls and giggles. Toby, quiet and wide-eyed, always clinging to someone. I sat down for a moment, still holding my phone. My finger brushed the edge of Jean's picture frame, that oak one he made in his workshop before the arthritis got too bad. That's when the message buzzed in. "Mom, hey, tonight? Maybe don't come. Eli's not comfortable with you being there. Let's plan for another day." I blinked. Then again. I reached for my glasses and read it slowly, the way I used to read bedtime stories, line by line, like it might mean something different if I read it with the right tone. I typed back, "What do you mean? I thought you wanted me there." Her reply came faster this time. No hesitation. "There was a misunderstanding. You're not invited. Please don't make this harder." I didn't move, didn't breathe, just sat there like I was watching someone else's hands hold my phone. I looked at the bottle of wine on the table. Still wrapped, still meant for something. I should have known. I should have felt it in my bones the moment she didn't answer. All those times Camille invited Eli's mother for dinner, those elaborate spreads with linen napkins and matching glassware. Me, I was always a footnote, sometimes a last-minute addition. "If you're free, Mom," like a courtesy invite, like a side salad. I remembered sitting through those nights, keeping quiet, folding napkins, refilling water glasses. I told myself, "Don't say too much, Nora. Don't talk about Jean. Don't bring up the past. Don't make her explain you." Once, I told a story, just one, about Jean missing Christmas one year because of deployment. I thought it was relevant. Eli shifted in his seat, didn't even smile. Camille changed the subject so fast it gave me whiplash. Now, here we were, years later, me still wearing the same dress, still offering the same wine. My phone buzzed again. This time it was from the bank. Automatic payment, Toby's college tuition, $2,846. I exhaled through my nose. Of course, next to it was the real estate flyer Camille left last time she visited brand new townhome near the lake. 3 floors, wide deck, modern fixtures. I paid 70% of that down payment, said it was my retirement gift to her. She said, "Thanks, Mom, you're the best." She hadn't said much since. 3 days ago, I told her I was retiring. Her response, a blink, a pat on the shoulder, and wow, big news. Then she moved on. And now, this. I thought of calling someone Lorraine. She'd just tell me what I already knew. I opened my contacts, stared at Jean's name, still sitting there, couldn't bring myself to delete it. Then my phone lit up again. This time, a message from Delilah. "Grandma, are you almost here? I made your favorite carrot cake." I let out a sound, not quite a laugh, not quite a sob, just breath with a little ache in it. The girl didn't know. No one had told her. She was probably still wearing that apron I gave her last summer. Probably proud, probably waiting. I wrote back, "Grandma, can't come tonight, sweetheart. I'm so sorry. No explanation. What could I say that wouldn't ruin her night? I stood up slowly, walked out to the porch. The sun had dipped low, pink sky, air turning crisp. You could smell a storm brewing somewhere over the ridge. I stood there, looking out. No cars, no music drifting over, no footsteps coming up the walk. I could have walked over anyway, knocked, sat outside like a beggar, but I didn't. I turned around, stepped back inside, shut the door. And somewhere between the sound of that latch clicking and the silence that followed, something inside me changed. Not a storm, not a fire, just a stillness. I woke up early. Didn't sleep much the night before, but that wasn't new. These days, sleep comes and goes, like an old friend who doesn't stay long. I got out of bed, wrapped my robe around me, and made my way to the kitchen. The house was quiet. It usually is now. I brewed a pot of coffee, nothing fancy, just the usual blend I buy on sale at Kroger. Dark roast, strong enough to sting. I poured a cup and sat at the kitchen table, the one Jean and I bought secondhand the year Camille turned 12. Still has the nick on the edge from when she dropped her trumpet case on it. The sun hadn't come up all the way. There was that thin line of pale light behind the trees out back, soft like a whisper. I stared at it for a while, then reached over to the old wooden drawer beneath the hutch. It sticks sometimes. You have to lift it slightly to pull it open. Inside were the files. I've kept them there for years, labeled and organized like I used to do for PTA bake sales and school fundraisers, envelopes, statements, receipts. I pulled out the first one marked Camille Roof Repairs. $9,400. That was when their shingles blew off in that freak spring storm. I remember Eli wanted to patch it himself, but the insurance didn't cover water damage, and Camille was worried about mold. I cut a check. She promised they'd pay me back when things settled. That was 4 years ago. The next envelope, Eli recertification tuition, $3,200. He failed the first time and had to re-enroll. Camille said he was just stressed, not dumb. I said nothing. Then car down payment, Subaru, $15,000. I remember that one clearly. They needed a second vehicle after Toby got accepted into that magnet high school across town. I laid them all out on the table, lining them up like old Christmas cards. Each one a memory I didn't want, tied to a moment I was supposed to forget. Then I pulled the smaller ledger book from the side pocket. That's where I kept the notes that didn't go in the files. The little things. Private tutor, Toby, $780. Language, summer camp Delilah, $2,100. Tennis club fees, Eli, $1,100. I ran my finger down the list. Line by line, scribbled dates, payment confirmations, some even with a smiley face I must have drawn on a good day. I opened my checkbook, balanced it against my bank account online. Over the past 8 years, I'd given away just under $340,000. Not lent, given not one loan agreement, not one repayment, just here you go, baby, don't worry about it. I took a long sip of coffee, it had gone cold. I remembered Camille crying on the balcony that night Eli lost his job. Spring air, soft wind. She said, "We're 2 months behind on rent. I can't breathe, Mom." And without thinking, I wrote a check for $12,000. I didn't even blink. I just wanted to hold her together, because deep down, I believed if I could carry her pain, then maybe she wouldn't have to. Because I knew what it was like to feel the ground drop beneath your feet. When Jean passed, Camille came by the house. She brought flowers. Stayed exactly 23 minutes. Didn't sit down, she said. I'd stay longer, but work is a nightmare right now. I didn't argue. I just nodded. She kissed my cheek and left the coffee she brought still sitting, untouched, on the kitchen counter. Now, here I was, 10 years later, still paying for her peace of mind. I opened a small spiral notebook I kept in the drawer. Inside were the scheduled automatic payments I'd set up over the years. Blue Cross Health Premium Eli, Toby's dental work plan, Camille's gas card, top-off shell, weekly grocery delivery, Instacart to their address. I counted 174 of them. 174. I stared at that number like it was a bad lottery ticket, and suddenly, I felt tired. Not angry, just hollow. I picked up the phone and dialed the bank, spoke to a young man named Troy who kept calling me ma'am and apologizing for putting me on hold. "Can I ask what's going on?" he said, polite but nosy. "I need to stop some payments," I said. All of them. All of them. He paused. That's quite a few. I know exactly how many, I replied. After a series of verification questions and 3 different holds, he finally came back on the line. Okay, ma'am. All 174 recurring payments have been suspended. Would you like to make it permanent? I closed my eyes. Let the words settle. Yes, I want them all canceled. I'll come by the branch tomorrow morning to sign the revocation paperwork. Understood, we'll have it ready. I thanked him and hung up. The house was still quiet. Not even the refrigerator hum felt loud. I turned toward the window. In the backyard, the little maple tree I planted when Camille graduated stood still, leaves turning yellow, edges curling. It had grown taller than I expected. I walked over, set my hand on the glass. My palm left a faint print. I didn't cry. I didn't want to, but something inside me dropped, like a coin slipping through a hole you didn't know was in your pocket. People think when you give, love is returned. But that's a children's story. In real life, love doesn't come with receipts. And the thing about invisible hands is, eventually, they get tired too. The next morning, I got to the bank around 8:40, 15 minutes before they opened. The sky was still gray, like it hadn't made up its mind whether to brighten up or just stay miserable all day. There was a bite in the air, nothing sharp, just enough to remind me I should have worn my thicker coat. But I stood there anyway, hands in my pockets, watching my breath cloud up and disappear. I wasn't nervous. I was ... steady. You get to a certain age, and you stop shaking before big things. What's scarier is the quiet in between, when no one's asking for anything, and you're left wondering what that silence costs. Linda Watkins greeted me at the door right as they unlocked it. She used to be one of the tellers. Now she's in a small office near the back. Always remembered my name. Hi, Mrs. Ellison. You're here early, she said, giving me a polite smile, but her eyes were softer than usual. Like maybe she knew a bit more than she let on. I like early. The quiet helps, I told her, following her into the office. She motioned to the seat across from her desk. How can I help today? I'd like to cancel the financial power of attorney I gave my daughter, Camille Lee. Linda blinked. Just a moment of hesitation. Of course, I'll print the revocation forms for you to sign. While she typed, I looked around her desk. Photos of her boys, a coffee mug with world's tiredest mom, and a little dish of mints. The kind Jean always used to keep in the glove box. After a minute, she said, we'll also need to notarize it once you sign. Was there anything else you'd like today? I'd like a full printout of every transaction from the past 12 months. Every one, no summaries. She paused again. That might be quite a few pages. Mrs. Ellison, do you want me to sort them by account? No, I said, just print them, as they happened. She gave me a slow nod and got to work. The printer beside her desk started buzzing to life. Paper fed through page after page. It kept going. Linda leaned back, looked at me gently. I've never seen this many payments linked to a personal account, she said. Not judgmental, just surprised. I said nothing. I glanced over at her monitor. My name and accounts were listed, and underneath, highlighted in a pale yellow row, Camille E. Lee mortgage payment, $3,870 month, active since March. I stared at it for a moment. No tears, no bitterness. Just the sharp click of something sliding into place. She handed me the growing stack, 34 pages so far. Do you want a folder? No, I said. I want to feel the weight. I signed the revocation form. She notarized it. I thanked her, and she didn't say much else. Just nodded, kindly. On the drive home, I took a detour. Turned left instead of right. Drove past the middle school Camille used to walk to, the park we used to picnic at, then ended up in front of a little cafe on Elm Street. It used to be our place. Mine and Camille's. We'd go once a month back when she was still single. We'd sit by the window, talk about work, men, groceries, nothing and everything. Today, I went in alone, sat in the same booth. The waitress brought me a menu. Would you like to start with coffee? Sure, I said. And a slice of lemon pie, if you have it. She smiled. We do. Haven't seen you in a while. I guess I've been busy, I said. A half-truth. I ate slow, looked out the window at a couple walking their dog, the kind of morning that didn't ask much of anyone. Back at home, I checked my phone. One message, Toby, Grandma, my credit card got shut off. Is something wrong with the account? No hello, no how are you? Just the question. I stared at the screen. Usually, I'd jump to respond. I'd apologize, even if I didn't know what I'd done, but not this time. I locked the phone, set it down, let it be. Later, I opened my laptop to check email. One caught my eye. Florence in Bloom. March getaway specials. I hovered the mouse over it. Wasn't planning to click, but I did. The pictures showed rows of cypress trees, clay rooftops, sunlight so soft you could almost smell the rosemary in the air. And then I remembered, Gene once promised to take me to Italy when we retired. He said we'd drink espresso on a patio in Florence. He wanted to see the Uffizi. I just wanted to sit under the Tuscan sun and not be anyone's mother for a while. But he left before we could go, took the last suitcase and never came back. I closed the tab, walked to the hall closet, pulled out the old photo album, the big blue one with the stitched spine. I flipped through until I found it. Camille, age 8, covered in flour, arms buried in a mixing bowl, grins so wide her cheeks looked like they might split. I ran my fingers across the page. That girl was gone. The phone buzzed again. This time, Dalila, Grana Mom Hassan T. Talked about you at all this week. I wanted to come visit, but she won't let me. Is everything okay? I typed slowly. One day you'll understand, sweetheart. I watched the cursor blink. Then, I hit send. That night, I turned off the lamp beside the bed. Turned off my phone too. No alarm. No messages. No waiting. The next morning, I gathered every last folder, envelope, and receipt and placed them carefully into the large canvas tote I kept in the coat closet. It was heavier than I expected, not just with paper, but with years I couldn't fold back up. I took a cab downtown, didn't feel like dealing with parking or the stress of squeezing into tight spots between impatient drivers. The air was cold again, dry this time, like it had been filtered through chalk. Martin Abel's office sat 2 blocks from City Hall, same brick building with ivy crawling halfway up the side. I hadn't been there in years, not since Jean passed. The receptionist, a younger woman with kind eyes and red glasses, looked up from her screen. Can I help you? I have an appointment with Mr. Abel, I said. She stood. Name, ma'am. Nora Ellison. A pause, a blink of recognition. Oh yes, please come in. He'll be right with you. She led me to the same conference room Jean and I had sat in when we first drafted our wills. I remembered the wooden table, polished to smooth. I remembered how Gene used to drum his fingers when he got nervous, how he'd squeeze my hand under the table without anyone seeing. Martin walked in, hair grayer than I remembered, glasses slipping down the bridge of his nose. He looked at me like a man surprised by a ghost. Nora, it's been too long. Yes, I said, but I haven't been gone. He smiled and sat. I'm guessing this isn't a social visit. No, I said, setting the tote on the table. I need to make changes. Big ones. All right, he said, reaching for a notepad. Tell me. I told him I wanted to create an irrevocable trust. The sole beneficiary would be Delilah. Camille and Toby would receive the minimum required by state law. Eli would receive nothing. Not even a mention. He leaned back, his pen hovering. That's a firm decision. I nodded. He hesitated a moment. Can I ask, what happened with your family? I looked him straight in the eye and said, nothing sudden. Just years of slow erosion. And now I want to live in the truth, not the hope. He didn't push, just nodded and got to work. It took some time. Documents, clarifications, signatures, but as we went through them, something started to lift off my shoulders. By the time I walked out, the sky had cleared, just a little. I inhaled deeply and noticed something strange. I could breathe, fully. Maybe for the first time in years. I stopped by the farmer's market on the way home, picked up a bunch of orange tulips. They'd just come in for the season. I'd always loved tulips, especially orange ones. Vibrant, unashamed of themselves. I bought a small apple tart too. No one to ask if it was the right flavor. No worry about whether Eli would find it too sweet. It was mine. When I got home, I placed the flowers in the old ceramic vase Jean brought back from North Carolina once, and I sat with my tart and my coffee at the kitchen table. That's when I noticed the missed calls. Camille, 99 missed calls. Eli, 2. I didn't call back. I didn't even listen to the voicemails. That evening, I went to the narrow closet under the stairs, pulled out the box with the old typewriter. I hadn't touched it in years, but it still worked. I dusted it off, rolled in a fresh sheet of paper, and typed, "If a woman vanishes from someone's life, would they notice, aside from when her bank account stops breathing for them?" I didn't cry writing it. I didn't even pause. The screen of my iPad lit up. It was Delilah calling via FaceTime. I answered, and her face popped up. She was lying sideways on her bed, eyes wide. "Grandma, what are you doing? You look happy." I laughed a little. "That obvious, huh?" She smiled. "Yeah, you've got this glow, like you just ate cake and didn't share." "I'm learning how to live for myself," I said. "Took me longer than it should have." She tilted her head. "Is this about Mom?" I didn't answer that part. I just said, "Sometimes silence is the only way to let someone hear what they've ignored for too long." She nodded, eyes a little glossy. "I miss you." "I miss you too, sweetheart." We talked for a few more minutes. Books, her school project, some boy named Jonas who had weird hair but a kind heart. When she hung up, I sat there staring at my phone. Then, without thinking, I opened a new message. "To Camille, you were once the most beautiful thing in my world. But I won't keep paying for the coldness you hand back to me in return." I sat with it, reread it twice. Then I deleted it, because silence, I've learned, is a kind of answer to, and sometimes it's the only one people remember. It was a quiet Saturday morning. I was out front, pruning the rosebush near the porch rail. My knees ached, but I'd learned to work through that. It was quiet except for the low hum of a neighbor's lawnmower somewhere down the street. I was just about to head in and make tea when I heard the crunch of tires on gravel. Then the doorbell rang. I wiped my hands on my jeans and opened the door. Camille. She stood there in her beige coat. The expensive one she used to call a bit too much before Eli started his new job. Her lips were painted a shade too bold for mourning. Her eyes, outlined perfectly. In one hand, she held a small white box with a silver bow. "Hi, Mom," she said. Her voice was practiced, smooth like a radio host. "Do you have a minute?" I didn't say anything, just stepped back and let her in. She walked in like someone trying not to look around too much, like a stranger in a place that used to be hers. "I brought you something," she added, holding out the box. I didn't take it. She placed it gently on the coffee table and sat down, on the old sofa, the one Jean used to nap in every Sunday afternoon. "I just want to talk, just us, no pressure." I stayed standing. She cleared her throat, folded her hands in her lap. "Look," she began, "I know that message I sent. It wasn't kind, but it wasn't meant to be cruel. Eli was under a lot of pressure that day. He was hosting his boss, and things were already tense." I didn't move. She kept going. "He didn't mean for you to feel left out. He just worries about how things come across. You know, when you bring up certain topics or say things that," she paused, then rephrased, "that people don't know how to respond to." "Like what?" I asked. She fidgeted with the hem of her sleeve. "Like when you talked about Dad's last hospital visit at Thanksgiving, or how lonely you feel. Sometimes, Eli says those things make guests uncomfortable." I crossed my arms. "So I'm the crack in the wall, and you're trying to repaint over me." She flinched. "It's not like that. Mom, please don't twist this into something it's not." I walked slowly over to the chair across from her and sat down. Then explained it to me, because from where I'm sitting, it sure feels like I was an embarrassment to you. Camille looked down. Her voice dropped. "I just didn't want anything to ruin the night. It was important for Eli. We've been trying so hard to build something, and I was never part of that something, was I?" I said, calmly. She didn't answer right away. "You remember," I continued, "how many times I came over, sat quietly, smiled through dinners I wasn't included in the planning of, wasn't asked to bring anything, wasn't asked what I liked to eat." I sat there and nodded. "You think I didn't notice?" She blinked fast, once, twice, but her voice hardened. "I didn't come here to dredge things up. We're not perfect, but we're family. I'm trying to make that count." I looked at the box she brought, probably from that bakery she likes, overpriced almond cookies with a gold foil label. "You didn't bring those cookies for me," I said. "You brought them because guilt needs wrapping paper." Her shoulders tensed. "All right, fine. You want honesty. I've wanted it for 20 years. We are behind on some things," she said sharply. "The mortgage, Toby's school fees. Eli's car needs new tires. If you could help just through this winter, things will ease up." I stood, walked to the desk, and opened the drawer. I pulled out the printed bank summary. 34 pages of automatic payments, donations, fees, and transfers. I laid it gently on the coffee table in front of her. Pick a page, I said. Pick any page. That's me. Right there, in line item format. Tuition, groceries, gas, therapy, insurance. I thought if I kept giving, maybe, just maybe, you'd remember. I was here. She touched the edge of the paper but didn't flip it. Her face flushed, but she didn't cry. This isn't fair, she whispered. No, I said, it's not. It hasn't been for a long time. She stood quickly, the old couch springs creaking beneath her. You're punishing us. You're cutting us off and pretending it's some kind of enlightenment. But really, it's just cruelty with a polite face. I shook my head. No, honey, I'm just done paying the price to be tolerated. Camille reached for the door, then stopped. She turned, face rigid. You think you're proving a point, but all you're doing is pushing everyone away. No one wants to deal with a woman who can't move on. I walked toward her slowly. There's a saying I once heard in a little town near Oaxaca. I said, La mujer que se ahoga en silencio también aprendió a nadar sola. The woman who drowns in silence also learned how to swim alone. Camille stared at me, stunned for a second. You don't need to worry about me being alone, I said, voice level. I've lived through worse than silence, and I'll live through this, too. She hesitated, then stepped out, didn't slam the door, didn't even glance back. I stood there a long while. Then I picked up the box of cookies and placed it in the pantry, behind the oatmeal canister. Later that evening, I made myself a cup of tea and sat down with a notebook. I wrote at the top of the page, what if forgiveness isn't always about letting someone back in, but just letting them stop knocking? And that night, I slept without the weight of someone else's story pressing on my chest. I woke early, though I hadn't meant to. The room was quiet, and for once, the quiet didn't press down on me. I got out of bed and walked to the kitchen barefoot, letting the tile wake me up with its chill. Instead of my usual toast or bowl of cereal, I reached for the banana, the overripe one sitting on the counter, as if it had been waiting for me. The banana had turned almost black, too soft for toast, too far gone for oatmeal. Most people would have tossed it. I didn't. I peeled it, mashed it with the back of a fork, and reached for the flour. Jean used to say pancakes weren't worth making unless someone was waiting for them on the other side of the table. But that morning, I made a full stack just for me. I even put a little honey in the batter, the way he didn't like, but I always did. I sat by the window with my plate, looking out at the yard. The oak leaves had started to drop, but the air hadn't turned bitter yet. It was that in-between weather, when you can't tell if the world's ending or just catching its breath. The pancakes weren't perfect. They were a little burned on one side, but they were warm, and I ate every bite while they were still hot. I didn't wrap a plate for Camille. I didn't box any up for Toby or send a photo to Delilah. They were mine. That was the whole point. By 10, I'd pulled out the legal folder from the kitchen drawer and called Martin Abel. He picked up on the third ring. Nora, he said, sounding more awake than I felt. Everything all right? I'm ready, I said. Ellison Legacy. Let's finish it. There was a pause. I heard him shifting papers. You've had a week to think, you're certain? He asked. I'm more than certain, I said. 60% to Delilah, 10 to the Lincoln High Library Fund. The rest, Camille and Toby get what the state says they have to, not a penny more. And Eli, Martin asked gently. Eli gets my silence. That's all he's earned. He exhaled. I'll courier the documents by Thursday. We'll need your signature on every page. Make them thick, I said. I want to feel it when I sign. After we hung up, I got in my car and headed toward downtown. I hadn't been to the bookstore in months, maybe longer. The parking lot was half empty, which suited me just fine. Inside, the lights were soft and warm, and the smell of paper and old carpet made me feel like I hadn't aged at all. I went straight to the travel section. The books sat like promises, lined up neatly. I pulled one down. Florence, A Journey in Light and Shadow. On the cover was a photograph of terracotta rooftops under golden sunlight. I flipped through the pages and felt something pull inside my chest. I found a sketchpad and a tin of pencils too. I'd always told myself I'd learn to draw after retirement, but I never got around to it. There was always someone else's need that seemed more urgent. At the register, a young woman with hair dyed blue scanned my books. Going somewhere special? She asked. Not yet, I said. But I'm finally thinking like someone who might. She smiled. Good for you. When I got home, I went straight to the guest room. It still smelled faintly of old plastic and laundry detergent. I opened the toy bin. Toby's forgotten action figures, Delilah's broken dolls. I held one of the dolls for a moment, the head slightly loose, the smile faded. I whispered, "You were loved." Then I packed it all up. 3 garbage bags, full. The bed got stripped down, the mismatched pillowcases folded. I boxed up old sheets, the nightlight that no one used anymore, and a pair of toddler shoes I hadn't realized I'd kept. I hauled everything to the living room, called the donation center, and arranged pickup. Then I opened the window to let the air in. It was crisp, not cruel. Later that night, after dinner, I sat on the porch with my sketchbook in my lap. The streetlight buzzed, and somewhere a neighbor's dog barked. I hadn't drawn a thing yet, just flipped through page after page, admiring the emptiness. My phone buzzed in my sweater pocket. I pulled it out. It was Delilah. "Delilah, Grandma, Mom has been really quiet lately." I asked her if something happened, and she just said she's tired. "Is everything okay? Are you okay?" I read it twice. Her words felt like they were walking barefoot on a cold kitchen floor. I replied, "I'm all right, sweetheart. You don't need to take sides. Just ask yourself what kind of woman you want to be, and walk toward her. That's all." There was a pause. Then the little typing dots appeared, disappeared, reappeared, but no message came, and that was okay. I closed the phone and laid it next to me. I picked up the pencil and finally made one line, just one, across the page. It didn't look like much, but it was a start. That night I slept with the windows open, the air curling around the room, and for the first time in what felt like years, I didn't wake up halfway through, reaching for anything. It was just past 4 when I heard the soft knock on the door. I hadn't been expecting anyone, not anymore, but I looked through the curtain and saw Delilah standing there, both arms wrapped around a canvas tote and a brown paper bag that looked like it had traveled a few miles on foot. She smiled when I opened the door. "I brought dinner, kind of." "Well, come on in then," I said. She stepped inside, brushed a bit of hair from her face, and dropped her bag onto the kitchen counter like she'd done it 100 times. I noticed she was wearing the navy blue sweater I gave her for her 16th birthday, handmade. The stitching was uneven, and the collar stretched a little too wide, but she'd kept it. "I thought you forgot about that old thing," I said. Delilah glanced down. "I didn't. It's still the warmest one I own, and it smells like you." I didn't know what to say to that, so I reached for the bag she'd brought. Inside was a small loaf of homemade bread, still warm, and a Tupperware container full of lentil soup. "I used your recipe," she said proudly, "from that video you made back when I was 10, the one where you couldn't stop sneezing because of the pepper." I laughed, real and loud. "I remember. Your grandfather filmed that with the old camcorder. Took him 3 hours to figure out how to upload it." She helped me heat the soup on the stove while I sliced the bread. I watched her from the corner of my eye. She didn't take out her phone once. No checking notifications, no pretending to scroll. Just her hands helping mine, her voice humming softly. We set the table together, like we were building something small but solid. 2 plates, 2 glasses, 2 napkins, no centerpiece, no wine, just food and a little quiet. Once we sat down, I took a bite of the soup. It was slightly undersalted, but it didn't matter. It tasted like care. "Things tense at home?" I asked. Delilah looked up, eyes tired in a way young people shouldn't know yet. She nodded. "Mom blames Dad for not standing up to you. Dad just keeps pretending nothing's wrong. Toby's acting like the apocalypse is around the corner, slamming doors, making weird jokes, pacing like a cat that lost its tail." I raised an eyebrow. "That bad?" She let out a long breath. "Yeah. It's like everyone's waiting for someone else to fix the air in the room." I took another bite. The silence stretched just long enough for her to settle. Then I said, "You know, families don't fall apart because someone finally decides to breathe on their own. They fall apart because too many people forgot how to share the same oxygen." Delilah stared at me. Her eyes started to glisten. "I want to take your side, Grandma," she whispered. "But I'm scared. I don't want everything to break. I don't want to be the reason they fall apart." I reached across the table, laid my hand over hers. "Honey, you don't have to pick a side. That's not love. Love doesn't demand lines be drawn. I just want you to be a good person, and right now, you are." She bit her bottom lip. "Are you mad I didn't say something when Mom said you weren't invited?" I should have asked why, should have said something. I shook my head. No, I don't need you to protect me. I've walked this earth longer than you've been alive. I've held babies while burying my own parents. I've been left alone in rooms by people I loved. Silence doesn't scare me. After dinner, we washed dishes together. She dried while I rinsed. No words needed, just the clink of plates, the gentle rhythm of small work. I got a job, she said suddenly, at a bookstore near campus. Just weekends, for now. I smiled. That's wonderful. There's this guy, Jonas. He helped me when my car battery died last month. Didn't ask for anything in return. We started talking. He's quiet, reads more than he talks, but he listens. That's rare, I said. A man who listens and doesn't wait his turn to speak. He says his grandma raised him. She added. She was a nurse too. Well then, I said, he's already off to a good start. Delilah looked up, suddenly serious. Grandma, you're the only one who doesn't ask anything from me. No conditions, no expectations, just love. I felt something tighten in my chest, a knot I didn't know I'd been holding. She hugged me at the door, arms wrapped tight around my waist, her head tucked under my chin like she used to do when she was small. Thank you, she whispered, for still being here. I held her close, always, but not at the cost of myself anymore. I watched her walk down the path, long legs, coat swaying behind her, hair loose in the breeze. She didn't turn around. She didn't need to. And me. I stood there a while, the porch light glowing behind me, the wind pushing gently at the hem of my sweater. It was still March. The air had a bite to it, but I didn't shut the window that night, because something in me had finally thawed. Not all of it, just enough. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had to bolt my heart shut, just to survive. 2 days later, it was just past noon when I heard the latch click on the front gate. I was in the garden trimming back the lavender, fingers stained and dirt under my nails. I looked up and saw Toby, standing there like the wind had carried him in but forgot to set him down gently. His shirt was wrinkled, one button mismatched, hair a mess. He hadn't shaved, or maybe just hadn't slept. His eyes, hollow and red, like someone had been blowing smoke through them for days. "Boff," he said, breathless, "I need your help." I didn't answer right away. I set down the shears, wiped my hands on my apron, and walked to the porch. I held the screen door open. "Come inside." He walked in slowly, like his body didn't belong to him. I poured us both a glass of cold lemonade, slid his across the table, and sat down. He didn't touch it. "I wouldn't be here if it wasn't bad," he started, voice shaky. I didn't know who else to go to. "What's going on?" "My credit card got shut off. I'm 2 months behind on rent. The leasing company's been calling every day. My car got repossessed yesterday. I missed 3 payments. I didn't think it would happen that fast." He trailed off, started rubbing the skin between his thumb and forefinger. "I know I've been a mess," he said quickly, like the words were trying to outrun the shame. "But you've always helped me before. I just need you to help me this one last time." I took a sip of my lemonade. It was tart, clean. I looked at him, really looked. Underneath the mess was still that little boy who once cried because his toy broke and who thought I could fix anything with tape and a kiss. "What's your job again?" I asked. "I work in underwriting for a small insurance firm." "And you're how old now?" 23. "And do you pay your own bills?" His face tensed. "I try, but you haven't." "No." He dropped his head into his hands. "I thought I could figure it out, but I don't know how to manage money. Not really. Mom never really taught me that kind of stuff." And I cut him off, gently. "Toby, it's not all on your mother. You're old enough now to know you can learn what no one taught you. You're old enough to ask questions, find answers." He looked up, and his expression shifted, hurt, then defensive. "It's easy for you to say," he snapped. "You don't have to worry about money. You're comfortable. You always have been." I set my glass down slowly. "You think I'm rich?" He shrugged. "Aren't you?" "No, sweetheart. I'm just someone who gave the best of what I had to people I love, over and over." "But what did I get in return?" "Only phone calls when something was due. Never when I was lonely. Never when I was just ... a person." He blinked. I could see the weight of those words hit, but he didn't know what to do with them. "When was the last time you came here not to ask for something?" I asked. He swallowed. "Your birthday." I tilted my head. The birthday you were an hour late to, the one where you left early because you had a dinner date. He dropped his eyes again. Yuck. The silence in the room thickened. The clock ticked loud. He pulled out his phone with trembling fingers. I'll call Mom, he mumbled. Maybe she can. I held up my hand. No. He looked stunned. You don't need your mother. You need to start living your life. Facing it, fixing it. He stared at me like I had just asked him to walk barefoot through a fire. You want my help, I said. I'll give it to you. But not the kind you came for. I stood up, walked to the drawer near the stairs, and pulled out a business card. Martin's card. I placed it on the table in front of him. Martin Abel, he's my lawyer. He's looking for a file clerk. Temporary, hourly. The pay's not much, but it's a start. You can show up, work hard, and earn something. Not ask, not borrow, earn. He picked up the card slowly. You'd really have me work for your lawyer instead of just, yes, I said. His voice cracked. I didn't think you'd be this hard on me. I didn't flinch. This isn't me being hard. This is me finally being honest. I'm not your safety net, Toby. I was never meant to be. I'm your grandmother. That means I love you enough to let you fall, and to trust you'll learn to stand. He stared at the card in his hands. His fingers curled around it like he wasn't sure if he should hold on or hand it back. Then, for the first time since he'd walked in, he stood. No sighs, no promises, just a quiet nod. I'll call, he said. I'll try. That's all I want. He walked toward the door. Just before stepping out, he paused. You still love me? He asked, not looking back. I smiled. Love isn't the same as enabling, Toby. I love you more now than ever because I finally believe you can make it. He nodded again, then left. The screen door creaked and clicked shut behind him. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the glass he hadn't touched. I didn't cry. I didn't feel proud either. Just emptied, like I'd cleaned out a room that had been heavy with someone else's mess for too long. That night, as I sat by the window with my tea, a message came through on my phone. Delilah. Toby's being weirdly quiet. He didn't complain once during dinner. What did you say to him? I typed back slowly. I just helped him start living the part of his life he was supposed to live, the part that doesn't lean on me anymore. And with that, I put the phone down. Outside, the wind had picked up, the house creaked a little, but inside me, there was stillness. Maybe, just maybe, it was finally time for them to stop calling dependency love. Because love that only exists when it's convenient isn't love at all, it's a transaction. And I'd canceled my membership 6 weeks after Toby came to my porch, looking like a boy who'd been lost in the woods too long. I had my affairs in order. The trust was finalized, the assets reassigned. I'd closed 3 old accounts and sold off a handful of investments I no longer needed. The money, once earmarked for birthdays no one showed up for, and emergencies that were never mine, now had a single purpose: me. It was the first time in my life I didn't feel guilty for saying that. I picked up the phone and called Lorraine. We'd known each other since sophomore year of high school, back when we passed notes behind our algebra teacher's back. She had become a widow a few years after Jean. We talked from time to time, mostly during holidays or when one of us had a scare. She picked up on the second ring. Nora. Hey, you still remember that promise we made? The one with Florence and wine and us finally doing something selfish. Lorraine didn't skip a beat. She laughed, a rich, deep laugh that I'd always loved. I booked my ticket 3 weeks ago, she said. I was just waiting for you to mean it. And just like that, we were going. Before I left, I wrote a letter to Delilah. Not a text, not an email. A proper letter, on real paper, folded and sealed with tape that stuck to my thumb. Sweetheart, if you need me, write. I'm not bringing my phone. This time, I need quiet. Love always, Grandma. P.S. I've enclosed a photo of me and your grandfather in front of the old olive tree. I want you to keep it. We planted that tree when Camille was born. I left the envelope on the kitchen table with her name in big letters. No one else would understand what that tree meant. 2 days later, Lorraine and I boarded a plane in Atlanta. It was the first time I'd been out of the country in over 40 years, and the first time I didn't pack snacks for someone else. The flight was long, but I didn't mind. Something about watching clouds from above made me feel like I was already starting over. When we landed in Florence, the air hit me different. Lighter, older, as if the wind itself had more stories to tell than it had time for. We rented a stone house in Tuscany, perched on a slope with a balcony that looked out over miles of vineyards. Everything felt ancient but kind. I opened all the windows that first night and slept like the bed had known me longer than my own bones. Each morning, I woke before the sun reached the hills. I'd make a small pot of espresso, strong, black, nothing added. I'd carry it out to the terrace with my journal, and I'd write, not to document, not to hold on, but to let go. Lorraine would join me later, still in her robe, hair tied back like it always had been since we were 16. You always did. Wake up too damn early, she teased one morning, sliding into the chair beside me. Old habits die hard. Or not at all, she said, sipping her coffee with a satisfied grunt. One afternoon, we signed up for a local cooking class. Handmade pasta. It sounded romantic and manageable, but the dough didn't like me. I tore it twice, trying to roll it thin enough. I looked down at the ruined mess and started to apologize. Then I heard Lorraine laugh, loud and sharp. Nora Ellison, she said, pointing with a finger. Did you just apologize to pasta? I burst out laughing, really laughing. The rest of the group joined in, and for once, I didn't feel like I had to be anyone's example. I was just the woman with messy dough and good timing. That night, we drank Chianti and watched the sky bleed into lavender. The following morning, the hotel clerk handed me a printed email. It was from Delilah. Grandma, I moved into my new apartment. It's small, really small, but it's mine. I saved up and did it myself. I thought you'd be proud. I sat with that letter on the steps outside the house, sunlight warming my knees. Then I had Lorraine take a photo of us, standing on the old stone plaza in Siena, our shadows falling long on the mosaic floor. I emailed it back with one line. Proud is too small a word. You've reminded me what real love looks like. We spent our last afternoon walking through a small village outside Montepulciano. There, tucked behind a row of stone houses, was a cemetery. Most of the tombs were hundreds of years old. One caught my eye. It was a single stone, weathered and crooked. The engraving read, Chi non vive, per se mori, per tutti. He who does not live for himself, dies for everyone else. I read it twice. Lorraine stood beside me, quiet. Then I turned and said, now I understand. If we don't learn to live for ourselves, we never truly live for anyone else either. She didn't say anything, just nodded. That night, the last night, we sat on the porch of the house, watching the moon rise over the valley. I didn't speak. I just listened to the wind weaving through the cypress trees. In my journal, I wrote the final line of the trip. Tomorrow, I go home. But I'm not the woman who left. When I stepped back into my house in Fayetteville, the air felt quieter than I remembered, like the walls had been waiting, holding their breath. I didn't unpack. The suitcases stood in the hallway, like polite guests who knew better than to ask for anything. I walked into the study, opened the old drawer where I used to keep every bank statement, every bill, every confirmation of what I'd given, and to whom. I reached for the scissors, sturdy ones, jeans, old gardening pair. One by one, I cut through the papers, for neat stacks, college payments, car loans, mortgage transfers, healthcare premiums. Each slice felt like a goodbye I'd forgotten to say. And I said it now, not with tears, just the sound of paper giving way. There was a letter from Martin waiting in the mailbox, postmarked the day before. He confirmed the finalization of the trust. The assets were now secure, under the name Ellison Legacy. Camille had been notified. It was done. I made a cup of tea, sat by the window. No music, no news, just the distant hum of the neighborhood, a dog barking, the faint rattle of a lawnmower down the street. A normal Thursday afternoon, until the doorbell rang. I stood still for a moment, tea in hand. My heart didn't race, but something low and steady hummed beneath my ribs. I opened the door. There they were, Camille, Eli, and Toby. Not one of them said a word right away. They looked like people who'd been summoned somewhere they weren't ready to go. I stepped aside. Come in. They walked in like they weren't sure if it was still allowed. I didn't offer them coffee. I didn't ask them to sit, but they sat anyway, all three of them on the couch, like children about to be read a bedtime story they weren't sure they wanted to hear. Eli spoke first. We didn't come to ask for anything. He paused, jaw clenched. We just want to understand. Why did you do this? Why now? His voice cracked. It feels cruel. I looked him in the eye, then turned to Camille. Her lips were drawn tight. Toby was looking down, fidgeting with the thread on his sleeve. It's not cruelty, I said calmly. It's justice. For 30 years, I gave everything without being seen. This was me, asking the world to finally see me. Not as a bank, not as background, as a person. Camille's voice broke in. You said you'd always be on my side. And you, I said slowly, locking eyes with her, once told me you'd never make me feel like a burden. That shut her up. She blinked twice, but she didn't argue. Toby spoke then, almost a whisper. Mom. Maybe we should stop pretending we didn't lean too hard. I did. I know I did. Camille turned to him. Toby, you don't know what you're saying. Yes, I do. He sat up straighter. Grandma gave more than anyone. And we acted like it was just what she was supposed to do. I didn't say anything. I let that silence hang, because for once, it wasn't mine to fill. I'm not angry, I said finally. I'm not waiting for apologies either. I don't hate you, but I won't live in someone else's house anymore. Not figuratively, not emotionally. If I'm not wanted as I am, I won't stay. Eli leaned forward. His voice was soft, but it held something new, something careful. If someday we show you we've changed, if we prove we see you, really see you, ... would you let us try again? I nodded once. If it's real, yes. No promises were made. No one cried. They stood up and walked out, quiet like the morning after a storm. I didn't watch them leave. I didn't need to. The next day, Delilah came by. She didn't knock, just let herself in the way she always had, carrying a new notebook and a bag of fresh lavender from the farmer's market. I'm writing something, she said, pulling the notebook from her tote. A short story, about a woman who decides she's done paying for people to stay close to her. I smiled. I hope she doesn't die alone at the end. Delilah tilted her head. She won't, but she might live better. We went out to the front porch. The old lavender bush had gotten scraggly. We pulled it out together, then dug a new hole. The sun was strong that day, but the breeze was kind. What do you want to name this spot? She asked, brushing dirt off her hands. I thought for a moment. The beginning corner. I thought it was the ending corner. No. I looked at her, then at the little plant in the soil. I don't believe in endings anymore. Only the parts of life that finally belong to no one else. Just us. That night, I opened the last bottle of wine I brought from Florence. I poured a single glass, turned on the soft yellow lamp by the window, and sat down. No phone buzzed. No one expected anything. No explanations left to give. Just me, breathing. And for once, I could hear it. My own heartbeat. It was steady. It was mine. I am a mother, a grandmother, a woman who once believed that love meant giving without expecting anything in return. But after all these years of sacrifice, endurance, and silently carrying the weight of an entire family, I've come to realize this. If you keep giving without being seen, without being valued, then it's no longer love. It's erasing your own existence. I no longer want to pay just to have a place in someone's life. After everything that's happened, I finally understand. Everyone has a limit. And when that limit is reached, it's time to start living for yourself. Not for a silence painted over with the word family. I chose to stop, to break free from the dependence disguised as kinship before it dragged me down any further. And you, if you were me, if your own child sent you a message saying you were no longer welcome, after a lifetime spent lifting them up, what would you do? Would you have the courage to put an end to that one-sided love? I truly want to hear your thoughts. May God always bless you.